Hi, Jonathan. Big pleasure to have you here. It's such an honor for you to be speaking with me today and to be sharing all your story, everything you can to help more job searchers look and find their dream jobs,
Of
Like,
course.
yeah, I think you are a bit everywhere now, and we never get tired of hearing your story. So I was like, okay, let's see how we can sum Jonathan's story in like this just really short intro. So I see that you were born in California, but your parents are immigrants, and you suffered from imposter syndrome, getting into your dream universities and also getting into your dream companies. And I guess this was when you started networking very fiercely and optimizing
Yeah.
all your strategies and you used social media to land your jobs at Snapchat, Google, and Cisco. And I guess everything you've learned, you condensed it, and then you created consulting, which has been 3 amazing years. Congrats on the 3 years mark, by the
Yeah,
way.
thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, it's a big pleasure. It's been really fun as well to see everything grow and everything that has been happening. And yeah, you've been featured in several magazines, spoken hundreds of conferences, even got elected recently for the Forbes 30 under 30 in education. Big
Yes,
congrats as well. Like
thank
this
you.
interview is just gonna be like, hey Jonathan, congrats. Like it's amazing what you're doing. And yeah, it's just like helping so many people coming from non-traditional backgrounds, landing jobs. So I mean, this is where I know, but I would still love to hear from yourself. Where do you come from? What's your story? What's behind consulting?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank first off, Mariana, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and thank you for this introduction. Yeah, I mean, my story starts from when I was in college. Yeah, I come from a Filipino background, so family of five. I have a older brother and younger sister, so I'm the middle child, aka the rebel or the entrepreneur. But yeah, I remember when I was in college, like I wanted to just get into corporate. And I think that's a lot of people's dreams and aspirations to get into corporate, but they just don't know how to get there. So by trial and error, like doing a lot of the applying to roles, like you've probably heard it, and a lot of people too. Like I tell people all the time, I used to apply to roles and get rejected from a lot of them, mainly because number one, my experiences didn't align. But number two, I didn't go to a school that was partnered with a lot of these companies where they were able to get them interviews.
Hmm.
So that's why I love teaching these unconventional strategies because a lot of people, especially on their job search, have to utilize unconventional strategies to get to where they want to be. So that's how I was able to actually get into Snapchat, Google, and Cisco by just using LinkedIn. So through LinkedIn message from Snapchat, so I slid in a recruiter's DMs, sent them a message that I converted a cover letter that I had into a message and then sent them a message. For Google, same thing with LinkedIn content creation, basically creating a LinkedIn post that was specifically tailored towards big tech. And then lastly, with Cisco, just all about that personal branding and optimizing your LinkedIn profile, which Mariana does amazing at with us at Consulting. So all of these coming together, it all wouldn't have happened if I didn't have people by my side who always supported me. And it's always about that mindset and that mental capacity. What happens a lot is job seekers out there, maybe if you're watching this, if you're a job seeker, you might feel down on yourself because you're doing all the things that we might be teaching, right? Mariana and I, regarding how to network with people, how to apply to jobs, how to make a perfect resume, and you're still not getting interviews. And that's okay. All you have to remember is that you have to keep networking and keep on going because the way you get a job is you just get the one yes, and the one yes can lead to a dream opportunity. So I think that a lot of the things that I talk about is networking, but a lot of the things that people don't see is that mental capacity that you must have, especially on the job search or even when creating content or making a podcast like this. So that's a little bit about my story.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think you touched a lot of important points, especially on this last part where you can have all the strategies in the world. You can understand what are the companies that you want to get into. But then if you don't have these like foundations behind it and people that can actually support you, then it's really hard to go. And I know you say this a lot. And I mean, we all see this happening that job search is an emotional process. So it's a mental fight. So like
100%.
yeah. So how do you build those foundations, and what are those foundations for you that help you deal with rejection after rejection after rejection? And where's that yes?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna sound cliche. What's one of
Hmm.
my favorite sayings because what happens is the way you react to rejection, I personally believe, is of course based on your own beliefs, but it's
Hmm.
based on also the people that you're with. Now, what does this mean? So let's just say I have like five best friends, right? And let's just say my five best friends are also on the job search and they're getting rejected for roles. And they say to me, Jonathan, like, there's nobody hiring, like, the job search sucks. Like, dude, like, and they're complaining, right? Me,
Hmm.
in turn, then I'm going to start complaining as well because if they're complaining, I'm going to be complaining too. But imagine your five best friends instead are saying, oh, like, I got rejected for this role, but let's just keep on going. Let's motivate each other.
Yeah.
Let's get that next opportunity and let's work on it. Let's have a friendly competition to get there. And now, why I'm mentioning this and the power of friends or the power of people who hold you accountable is because how you react to things in life, not just with job search, but with anything in general, whether it's achieving a goal, whether it's working out, whether it's weight loss, whether it's learning a specific language. The most important part, I believe, is the accountability part. If you don't have people that are by your side that are influencing you in a positive light, the things that you want to achieve aren't going to be achieved. You're going to have a lot of different complaints. You're going to have a lot of different excuses. So I think one thing that people have to think about, especially when they're on the job search and they're coming from a non traditional
Hmm.
background, is that find other people who are also on the job search with you that can help support you along the way. Also, find mentors, people that are going to hold you accountable
Yeah.
towards those goals and that are going to help you get there. Then find champions who are going to be people who are advocating for you in their respective company and pushing your resume out. That is how you are able to keep a sound mind in the job search. And instead of going into an excuses or a victim route of not getting a job, you're instead going to a motivational route, which will allow you to achieve that dream job.
Yeah, I think those are great tips. And you always see this thing of you're the average of the five people you hang out with the most, right? And that includes offline and online people. And I also think that people really underestimate the online people and influencers that they follow. So they can have the most positive people offline, but then they go online and they have a lot of things going on, a lot of mess. So it's very important to also niche that down and just double signing down what everything that you said, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people say that, but people sometimes they don't listen. There's
And
so many people saying it, and it's just like, yeah, like it's not for me. Like something else for
right.
me.
It's definitely true. And
Hmm.
I think one thing, and it's gonna sound very small, but one thing that I like to do is on your Google Calendar or on your
Hmm.
calendar or have like a notebook, write down those goals and then also block off time to do those things. So for example, like what I used to do all the time is when I was on my job search, I would block out time on my Google Calendar for 30 minutes and it would just say networking on LinkedIn. Now, why do you want to do that? The reason why you want to
Hmm.
do that is because, for example, a lot of people listen to this podcast and be like, okay, I'm going to do it. But in reality, maybe about less than 5% of people will actually do it. The reason being is because you forget. The human mind is like that. You're just going to simply forget about things. So instead, whenever you learn something or whenever you want to achieve something, you want to just put it on your Google Calendar and put a time frame because when you're able to see that, you're like, oh, for this time, I'm going to be able to, I'm going to be networking with people for 30 minutes. So that's a little quick tip that I've personally utilized myself to stay in track with what I want to achieve.
Yeah, that's a great productivity tip as well. And I'm also curious to know because sometimes we are so fiercely networking that we think it's a numbers game. And it might be, it's also true. We're not going to take that out of the equation, but it's also about keeping up with people and following up because it's about connections and building, a real connection one to one that people actually want to help you. So, what are your best tips to following up and to actually develop the relationship over time?
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is a numbers game. But once you get
Mhm.
the numbers or people responding, then it's a quality game.
Yeah.
Now, usually what people will do is let's just say we have this conversation right now and Mariana works at, let's say, BCG, right? And you want to go work
Mhm.
at BCG, maybe you'll have a phone chat with Mariana. And after the phone chat with you, someone might send a follow up, maybe about 25% of people, maybe even less, to be honest. Like a follow up meaning a thank you after. It varies, right? I'm just giving a random number. But what happens is the follow up after the follow up and staying in touch, nobody does it. Now, why does
Mhm.
nobody do it? The reason why nobody does it is because people forget. I keep mentioning the forgetfulness part because I am telling you, like, people will truly forget. Now, how do people remember? It's the reminders. It's Google Calendar invites you put on your Google
Mhm.
Calendar, which tell you, oh, update Mariana in the next 2 months or update Mariana on a specific holiday. So, why I'm saying always to follow up is because you'll definitely be memorable. I think I have about 160,000 followers on LinkedIn, and maybe like less than 5 people follow up consistently, which is kind
Mhm.
of crazy to think about. There's someone who actually follows up every single time, and that's it's actually my previous intern. He always follows up, and he just asked me for a phone chat for next week, so I'm chatting with him. Right, so you have to follow up because when you follow up, you're able to build rapport, and then also you're able to build
Mhm.
a connection, which will allow you to gain a mentor and a champion to help you get into your respective industry. So, for all those listening in, what I'd recommend is just making yourself a template of what you want to say in your follow up, and then
Mhm.
find all the people that have impacted your life that responded to the quantity of LinkedIn invites or emails you've sent. Send them an update of what you've been up to. And at the end, have a call to action asking them a question to engage in a conversation. By doing that, you're going to be able to gain so many connections with people, and people will be very thankful for it because, like I said before, not a lot of people do it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also something that I didn't understand in the beginning when I started networking, because I would like send a lot of messages to a lot of people that I found were amazing. And I was like, oh my God, these people, this person is never going to reply. And then they would reply. I would land a coffee chat and they would say thank you. I was like, you were saying thank you to me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the baby in here. And yeah,
And
so
I
people
was gonna I
really,
was gonna
yeah.
say, yeah, no, definitely, Mariana. And the thing is, I love that you mentioned that
Hmm.
you sort of self-reject yourself from actually sending it because you think to yourself, this person isn't going to respond. What happens a lot in the job search is I'm going to keep stressing this, it is a mental game. And why is because when you're going to go apply for a role, when you're going to reach out to someone, the thing that's stopping you is yourself, meaning the feeling of self rejection, the feeling of you not being good enough, the feeling of you reaching out and them not responding. What I tell people all the time is you have to have humility. Humility is so important because before, for me, and a lot of people here, probably you feel a sense of pride that's like if I reach out to this person, they don't respond to me, I'm going to be down on myself. But in reality, you have to have humility to ask for help, and you have to put yourself out there for asking for help, and that being that type of person will allow more opportunities to come to you because you're not begging for help. You're just asking people for help to see if they would help you. And if it doesn't work out, you move on to the next person.
Yeah, I love that as well. And I have an example that my yoga teacher told me. So you might not believe in spirituality or whatever it is, but basically, I told her, like, "Oh, sometimes I'm like, I want to ask someone for something, but then I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to bother them. I'm going to take their time." And she told me these karma concepts. So for you to increase your karma, you need to help other people. But for you to allow and also let other people increase their own karmas, you need to let them. So you should ask them things so they have the opportunity to also, do something good and feel good about themselves. So it's like it's the way you say it.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. And if, like I always say, if you never ask, you never
Mhm.
know. And if you never ask, the answer is always no. Like the worst thing that can happen is someone just doesn't respond to you.
Exactly. So if you ask, then you turn a no into a maybe, and a maybe can turn into a yes.
Hmm.
And getting that, like when you were saying that you should not self reject when you're just starting out, you just try and reach out to people and all of that. So how would you advise someone that has no idea how to start on their job search? How would they start? Which kind of strategy should they go to? And what are these hidden strategies that are the best strategies they should use?
Yeah, I think one of the most important parts. And
Mhm.
people will jump straight into networking, which is wonderful, but you first have to identify what you're even going for. Now, why do you want to do that? Because, for example, you don't want to have like 10 positions like, oh, I want to be a product manager, I want to be a strategy ops analyst, I want to be a UX designer. It's too many different roles. What I would say to everybody is first identify 3 job titles you're interested in that are in the relevant industry or field you're trying to go into. So a quick example would be, let's just say you're going for strategy and operations. 3 positions would be an operations analyst, a product ops analyst, and a strategy and operations analyst. After doing that, then network with people who are in those roles. How do you do that? Simple. Search the role, filter to whatever company you're interested in, and network with them. Super simple. To make it even better, network with people that are making LinkedIn content. How you do this? Search a position, filter the company, then filter the post. You can find all the people who are, let's just say, strategy operations analyst at Accenture who are making LinkedIn content. Then message them on LinkedIn saying that you like their content and you want to connect with them. One of the most key components about networking is and networking with people who are active on LinkedIn is always complimenting their content. People love that. I think that's something very subtle yet very effective. So that's one thing that I would do to identify your dream job and network with people in your role. The second thing is a lot of people think that the traditional way of simply applying to a job will get you an interview.
Mhm.
It could, right? I don't say, hey, like don't apply to any more jobs. But the even better way to do it is to network with people who have an actual say in that hiring process. And who are they? They are the tier 1 and tier 2 people, which is the hiring manager, the someone who's actually hiring for that position. Let's just say,
Mhm.
for example, I am a head of operations at Cisco and I'm hiring for an operations analyst. I am the hiring manager. That would be me. Or getting recommended by someone who's on the actual team. So let's just say Mariana is a consultant at BCG and her team is hiring for an associate consultant, right? That's a hiring team member. Now, why do you want to network with these people? Because if you're able to get a recommendation from them, it's more valuable than just getting a referral from, let's just say, a UX designer referring a strategy and ops analyst, because those are 2 different positions. So, what I would recommend is the second part is networking with recruiters and hiring managers. How do you find them? You, like I said before, you look at the job that's being posted and you go find people in that role. And what's even better, if you look through their activity, sometimes they'll have posted it, which means that they're on the actual team. And then the second part is if they are ever a manager on their titles or have head of whatever, and it says they're hiring for a role, they're usually the hiring manager. That's the second part. The third part would be, of course, you have to have a great resume and a LinkedIn profile, right? So, for example, your resume, like if you don't have experience relevant to the role you're hiring for, you're probably
Mhm.
not going to get an interview, right? I know a lot of people say like, oh, like if you're entry level, go still apply to 3 to 5 year experience, or even if you have 1 year. Like you could, but in reality, there are probably other people that are more qualified that fit at least minimum qualifications or even more fit even preferred qualifications. So you can try for that role, but don't expect for you to get an interview or an offer because they might only be hiring for one role, right? So what I'd recommend to people is make sure you're applying to the correct roles with your resume and just look at your resume and think about, okay, does this resume match up with the job description I'm going for? Go look at 3 job descriptions. Go see whether or not they are in the field that you're interested in and you have those skills that are tailored towards those job descriptions. I'm telling you, 3 job descriptions of a UX designer at Google, Meta, and Apple are probably very similar. So those are the 3 things I would recommend. And your LinkedIn profile, of course, because when you're networking with people, the first thing they're going to see is your LinkedIn profile. So you have to make sure you have an optimized LinkedIn profile. Maybe you can work with Mariana on that with us at one sometime.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think LinkedIn profile has is very, very underrated as well. And especially when you're sourcing. So I started sourcing for profiles right now, and I'm going through the filters and through the things, and there's a lot of things that I personally didn't know before when I started my job search either, that you can search for filters hidden things, and you can see if people are open to work, where are they willing to relocate, which kind of job positions. So there's a lot to learn about LinkedIn. But
Mhm.
if you just have it as like a passive landing page, I think it's better than anything else. And yeah, and as a follow-up question, so I hear a lot of these like distinctions between hiring managers and recruiters, and that you should be looking for hiring managers instead of recruiters. You know, what do
Mhm.
you think about this?
Yes. So recruiters and hiring managers are totally different. If you
Hmm.
think about the funnel, why do people hire recruiters? So, for example, for me, I wouldn't hire a recruiter. Now, why would I not hire a recruiter for consulting? The reason why is because I would just rather just interview them, and we don't have like 10,000 applications like a Google, right? For example, Google has to hire a recruiter because they're trying to find qualified candidates for that hiring manager. So the hiring manager doesn't have to interview 200 people, nor do they have to source 10,000 resumes, right? So the reason why I would say hiring managers are better than recruiters to network with are two things. Number one, recruiters are busy, right? Recruiters just want to find that great candidate to send to the hiring manager, and recruiters probably get hit up so many times. Like you've probably seen a lot of LinkedIn posts regarding it. Recruiters are like us, like they always talk about how people just hit them up for a job, right? Which does happen a lot. So they probably get hit up a ton, especially from people who might not be qualified for the roles they're hiring for. So what happens is a lot is people will reach out. Let's just say a product analyst will reach out to someone who's hiring for a marketing role, right? And those are two different roles. The recruiter probably does not have a role that fits between your qualifications because you're going for a different role they're hiring for. Now, the reason why you want to network with hiring managers is because the hiring manager is going to be your manager. So let's just say for me, like I'm a hiring manager and I'm hiring, let's just say a marketing lead for consulting. If the marketing lead reached out to me and already told me the qualifications and I had a recruiter, the recruiter would just source 5 people, for example, for me to interview, right? But if you go straight to me and you're already qualified, why would I want to interview
Yep.
the other 4? It would save me so much time. Now, why I'm mentioning this is because there our marketing lead currently right now. She actually reached out to me on LinkedIn and sent me a whole entire proposal of why she's qualified. I already had a great impression of her. The other 4 candidates were great too, but she had the best impression. So we hired her and she's been a blessing to say the least. So networking with hiring managers is very important because if you get recommended by them, what's going to happen is that they're going to rate your manager. They're already supporting you. If they just tell the recruiter, hey, I want this person, of course the recruiter is going to put you through to interview with them. So, and lastly, not a lot of people know who the hiring manager actually is, but you can learn it
Hmm.
from looking at our content. So that's how.
Yes. You can understand who the hiring manager is, and then you're better off by reaching out. And yeah, it's really interesting because ever since I put recruiting like in my recent position, it started just a month ago, and I just like recruiting. I get so many messages, so many like from random people from everywhere in the world, like, hey, we have open positions. Hey, can you get me a job? Hey, are you hiring? And I'm like, okay, first, I don't know you. Then what do you bring to the table? So I mean, there's also this thing happening. So yeah, just
Yes.
go find hiring managers, everyone.
Yeah. And I was going to say, a lot of people would just say, hey, Mariana, get me a job.
Yes.
That's what most people will say. That's why you have to build that rapport, and you can't just be like, "Give me a job." You can't. It's such a privilege to just say, "Give me a job," right? When in
Mhm.
reality, it's especially those who come from non-traditional, underrepresented, underprivileged backgrounds. It's very difficult to say that, nor even having connections to begin with that could literally hand you a job.
Yeah. Okay. So I had other questions for you from like some things I've been seeing that are not 100% related to job search,
Yeah,
but they can help.
of course.
So Jerry says that you never burn out. They just work forever and forever and
Oh,
forever,
we
and
don't burn out.
you
Oh,
don't burn
I
out.
don't burn
It
out.
says Jonathan
Oh, that's
never
always like,
ever burns out. It just like works forever and forever. And this guy just has energy and he never gets tired. And like, how? We just want to know.
yeah, great question. I think that like the reason why I don't get burned out is of course I'm very excited to do what I do. I think that's what's very important. Whenever you're trying to find a job that you're trying to get into, you should be
Hmm.
excited to do what you want to do. Now, why do I say this? Because so I'll give you an example. So in the past few weeks, like I've had like dinner, like of course, with a lot of different friends. And one of the key things that people always talk about with a lot of people who are my friends or just my friends' friends is they always talk about, "Ah, I don't like my job." Or they say, work is stressing me out. Like thank God it's the weekend. Which is fine. But in reality, it's like, think about it. Like, would you do that for the next 20 years? Like, would you want to say to yourself, I'm looking forward to the weekend? For me, I look forward to every single day, meaning I look forward to every day, meaning like, okay, what can I do today to make an impact on someone? Or I can say, what can I do today to grow consulting or help someone get a job? I think the reason why I don't burn out is because of that mindset. But then it's also having people like Jerry or having a team where they uplift you rather than they're questioning you and being like, hey, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? Like for consulting, we have a culture of collaboration, a culture of innovate of ideation, and a lot of communication. I think it's very important. So I usually will never get stressed with anything. So that's the reason why, like, I'm very excited. I really don't get burnt out. Oh, and lastly, I just do things outside of work that are fun. So, like, when I'm working, I'm grinding, right? But the
Hmm.
thing is, when I'm outside of work, I don't try to focus on work. What happens a lot is that people will respond on their work Slacks or their whatever you're using, Microsoft Teams. They'll respond to like
Hmm.
12 a.m. at night. Like at night, just close your communications and just focus on yourself. Because if you're always focusing on work, you're gonna just be talking about work all the time. And it's just gonna get into your mental capacity and you're just gonna be like, shoot, like I don't want this anymore.
Yeah, I think that's really good. So establish your boundaries where they fit, and like this is me work, and this is me as a person outside of work, where you do other things. Yeah, I think those are great teams. Last question,
Mm.
and then we can go help more people and jobs
Yeah,
like
of
in
course.
other ways. So if you had all the powers in the world, like that magic little guy that's inside the lamp, you have that guy, and now you can wish for something that everyone has to follow, an universal rule. What would that rule be?
Yeah, so this has changed a lot throughout the past couple of years.
Mhm.
Like universal power. I remember the first time I talked about universal power, like I was like, I want to be able to fly or I want to be able to teleport.
Mhm.
Right. I think the universal power that's very important is positivity, but in a good light. Now, why do I say this? Of course, there's something called toxic positivity, but I think experiencing only having negative thoughts is something that's going to deteriorate a person, especially on their job search, because you're going to always play the victim card. So, what I tell people all the time is I want them to have a positive mindset because when you have a positive mindset, it's not going to only going to affect how you search for a job, but it's also going to affect everything else that's in your life. Why I say this is because what happened for me before was when I was on my job search getting rejected for a lot of the roles, I was very negative on myself. But then that also translated to how I interacted with other people. I was very negative too. So if everybody's able to have a positive mindset with the job search, it's going to contribute to everything else and trickle down to how you communicate with your friends, your family, your significant other. So I would say universal power is having a positive light and of course getting everybody jobs.
Yes, that's your personal mission, and you're doing it greatly. And I love that. So start with yourself, be nice with yourself, positive mindsets, and then you also spread it with everyone, right? And
So
then whoever works for everyone.
spread positive
Jonathan,
love and happiness.
yes, super hippie. I love it. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all your tips, for sharing your story as well, and being so vulnerable and so authentic in sharing everything you've been through. It was a big, big pleasure having you here. And
Of
yeah,
course. Thank you for having me. Definitely follow both of us if you're not on LinkedIn. So thank you again for having me, Mariana.
Thank you. Bye.